Alright then. Okay, in which case I'm not going to waste the time. I've already won it.
Yep.
Here's the problem. Without having, like, the exact same carrier, it makes it really difficult for me to evaluate what you could have done to change the outcome.
Right.
Let me see. Oh, well, there were a couple of issues that actually can be evaluated from just that. So, do you know what first strike is on a fighter?
No.
Okay. So, most people don't know what first strike is, but first strike is essentially the principle that if you are the last one to execute an order for your fighter to attack the other fighter, then what happens is that your fighter gains an advantage in that he gets to output the first bit of damage without receiving any damage in return. Do you know what I mean? So whenever
when you lock up, or you click to lock on me, and you lock me, you get an advantage, right?
Yes, kind of. That's assuming, of course, that the enemy CV did not click on you before you did. So if the enemy carrier, for example, clicked on your fighter, like right before the locked up, you will not get first strike, he will instead. So the best.
But if I click him and he decides to click me, how does that work?
So if you've already clicked him, okay, first strike decays over time too. So for example, if I were to click on one of your fighters right now from this kind of distance, it would not actually necessarily get first strike because the fact of the matter is that first strike decays with time. So because of that, you want to be as close as possible to the enemy fighter before you click on the enemy fighter to execute first strike. The best demonstration of first strike is usually the enemy fighter, the fighter that loses the first fighter is the one that actually gets first strike. You should have noticed that during the first time I engaged you, when you lost a fighter first before I did. But yeah, that's what first strike is. It gives you an advantage whenever you have equal tier and equal type fighters, because that way you can guarantee victory in that engagement. Most people say it's RNG based on how fighters win against each other. It's not really. With first strike, it really is kind of predictable which fighter squadrons will win and which fighter squadrons would not. Yeah, so if you ever face another Essex running a 2-2-2-1-1, you would basically use first strike to actually win the engagement conventionally. Or if you would prefer...
How would I beat his two fighters with my one?
How would you beat an Essex with two fighters with your one? You can't beat him conventionally. He has the numbers, he has the potential strafing ability and locking ability to actually stop you from doing anything, really. So you can't really win it conventionally. What you're gonna have to do is just play defensively. That's what that's what a balanced independence does. A balanced independence. I personally believe that you should play the top tier American carriers in strike, but you also play them like the independents in that you play with your fighters defensively, because you're under the assumption that if you do grow aggressive with your fighters, that you're likely going to lose the engagement more so than win it.
And that's one thing I've really learned with the SX is to hold my fighters for my strikes and to try and defend when he gets aggressive with his strikes.
That's the most effective way of actually...
Hey, Mags.
What's up?
Next time you do that, don't put black on like a dark blue. It's like a white MS Paint or whatever. Couldn't read shit. What even happened? I couldn't read it. It's not good enough. I can't read it.
I'll explain it to you later. Warlord's training me a couple of things that I don't know about CV at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you know how to counter the escape strafe?
Do I escape strafe into your strafe?
No. Not exactly. And
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure what that means.
When I see a carrier like a Taiho lock up one fighter and I see him pulling his fighter off to come escape strafe me, I'll exit strafe into his incoming strafe.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is... Okay, let me demonstrate this to you again.
I'll bring you a fighter to lock.
Okay. Okay, try to escape strafe this one. I'll demonstrate it to you.
And then you strafe me.
It's not that. If you can see it, basically what it is that you immediately click on the enemy fighter that's withdrawing from your area. Now, since the Essex fighters are a lot faster than the Taiho's fighters, this isn't necessarily that effective. But the thing is, in this kind of position, you make yourself very vulnerable to strafing from behind. Now,
Yeah.
in addition to that, that's basically how you counter it. You can also choose to counter by strafing from behind, but it's a lot less reliable. But how you execute this, if you want me to demonstrate this again, is basically the moment he escape strafes, you click in the direction of his fighter, and then immediately click on his fighter, and that will give you first strike on his fighter, and that should actually guarantee you the win.
Right. So try escape strafing and I'll practice it.
Okay. You have to click on the map, then click on the fighter.
Okay, I did it the wrong way. One more time.
A little bit faster reaction time.
Okay. There, just send another fighter.
For equal speed fighters, it will have to be a reaction time of approximately 0.5 seconds to 1 second. Yeah, you went in the completely wrong direction.
Yep. UI that time just didn't click.
Very interesting.
Like, I'm clicking as soon as you escape strafe, it's just not doing it immediately.
Well, that...
Like, I see as soon as you exit strafe, I'm clicking, and it's taking like a second or two for it to respond.
That's not usually what happens whenever I counter an escape strafe. Well, I mean, the thing is, do you use aircraft speed or do you use increasing HP of strikecraft? I'm assuming increasing HP of strikecraft.
I've taken all the fighter perks, that's all I know. I'd have to take
so you've taken the speed perk as well on the Essex to increase the speed of your planes by 5%?
No, I've not taken the speed, I know that much.
So you've taken the strike upgrade then?
I guess.
So yeah. Okay, I'm heading south this time, just to make it easier to predict which area I'm going to. Actually, come to think of it, it actually might be because of the statistics involving the Essex fighters and the midway fighters.
They're really slow to react.
They're turning a circle. I think it might actually be one of the largest of fighters. They're not as nimble as the Japanese ones, which is why I can actually immediately follow up and escape straight from you.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually I don't think this will be possible for you. It would have been possible for other American carriers, I suppose, but
Right.
Yeah, your planes are just not nimble
They
enough
don't
to actually do it.
turn very well
they
compared to the
don't.
Japanese planes.
No,
Like,
they don't.
I have a hard, like, I see strafes coming from a mile away and I'll click immediately, but sometimes I get clipped really hard, as to the Japanese who just jump out of the way.
Yeah. Your squadrons are a lot less maneuverable, but they also have a lot more planes in them, so that's always a benefit, I suppose. You should probably read the carrier guide, if I'm completely honest with you, if you want to actually see what it really looks like to try to counter an escape strafe, because that's the best resource you're going to have to actually do it. So yeah.
Even if I wanted to strafe you right now, I'm having a hard time reading you. You dick. Yep, that's what happens.
That tactic that I just used on you is called Every Precaution. You can look at it on slide number 28 or something like that. It's one of my favorite tactics to use whenever an enemy tries to strafe away from me.
And now you're gonna backstrafe me with that one squad?
Not now.
Oh, I locked you that time.
Locking it up is a lot more reliable and a lot less messy. I prefer reliability over reliability over straight up ease of
I
minimization.
can't get out of this. This is weird. It's not letting me exit strafe.
It isn't?
No, I'm clicking your plane too to try. Yeah, it's just a negative.
Very
It's
odd.
not letting me exit strafe at all. What the fuck?
I'm gonna let you destroy the squadron, so.
That's really weird. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Got it. Sending that one back. I'm gonna launch my first squadron.
Yep. How often do you strafe?
I mean, it depends on the situation. Like, if it's a Taiho with two fighters, some of them like to, like, if I notice they're doubling up their fighters, I usually try and just strafe the hell out of them.
I see.
And I try and avoid at all costs getting locked up by their two fighters, because I know I'm going to have to sacrifice a plane to get out of that and send it back.
Do you know why I prefer grouping up my fighters like this?
Because he's evil.
I'm guessing you have an easier, I don't know.
It's to encourage people to try to strafe me. It's to encourage people to try to strafe me. It's very uncommon for a person to actually successfully get a strafe against me. So because of that, I use it to bait it out, because most of the time whenever someone does try to strafe me, it messes them up, more often than not.
Yep. Like that, I try to click as fast as I could to get out. It just did not happen.
So yeah, that's why I prefer grouping up my fighters like that.
And then I get backstrafed. Jesus Christ. Okay.
So, do we have a lineup for who will be participating in
No.
Clan Wars tomorrow?
No, it will be a free-for-all. It will be
And this is my
practically a free-for-all.
last full squadron.
It's
Okay.
going to be a slaughter.
Revan,
Hmm.
we could face PSV or APOC in their bronze divisions.
Okay, but more likely than not, we're going to encounter potato seals.
Yes.
And do we have strategies drawn up, or we're just going to freeball it?
No. How can we draw up strategies when... I mean, I guess
We
we can
have
draw
the
up
maps.
we can draw up the general ideal association.
Okay.
How do I
gonna
We
predict
have
your
the
strafe?
maps. We have people submit their tier 10 ship rosters, and then go from there.
See, like if I don't pull to the side, you're just gonna strafe me. But if I don't go straight, you're gonna strafe the hell out of me.
Oh, that was a mistake on my part.
Oh,
Yeah.
posh. How posh.
Yeah, and I expect to see you in your grosser curvers.
Or my Zhao.
Hindenburg is preferable.
I'm aware that Hindenburg is preferable. We did testing on this. Everyone and their mother is aware of this.
How many doubloons do you want to bet that we're going to see all 7 Minotaur divisions or groups, whatever
Are we
you want
now?
to call them?
Let's dance, Warlord.
Sure we are. So we are going to do this, I see.
It's not gonna go well for me, but I mean, I guess.
Well, I hope you learned some things, Dymags.
Kind of.
Warlord, are you being a bad influence again?
No, I'm not. The fact of the matter is, Dymags, it's... I hope you understand why I prefer going with my split composition with my fighters like that. Because
Right.
it encourages people to try to strafe me, and that's usually when they make their mistakes.
So you have planes on their back, legs spread, enticing them in, and then once they come in for the penetration, you stab them in the dick.
Yes, that's the plan.
See, he's just being plain evil.
I'm sure I'm evil.
Yes, you are.
I'm sure I'm the most evil person alive.
Well, you give Hitler a good run for his money, but
I'm sure I do.
Yep. And but you're right up there with your glorious leader.
My glorious leader? And
Yeah,
who is this
Kim Jong-un.
glorious leader?
Kim Jong-un.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dymags.
I don't think you were really trying.
Not really. If I were trying, though, it would have activated defensive fire, but I didn't, so whatever.
Yeah, you didn't activate defensive fire and you didn't stop any of my strikes. Honestly, was long range dropping my torps because I thought you might strafe the hell out of them and DF them and all that fun jazz.
Oh, I see.
But what do you? I'm trying to get better at back strafing people when they try and strafe me, because every once in a while I run into a super strafe happy CB. But the problem is I have a hard time differentiating the CBs who just want to click on me with two fighters, or if they just want to try and strafe
So,
me.
the problem with your composition in American carries is since you don't bunch up your fighters, it's really difficult to tell, because most of the time whenever I bunch up my fighters, the enemy carrier is extremely encouraged to actually try to strafe me. That's exactly why I bunch up my fighters like I do. So because of that, since you only have one fighter squadron, I really can't predict. I always work under the assumption that the enemy carrier is going to try to strafe me. That's usually my operating, my modus operandi. To backstrafe a carrier, it has to be in one of two situations to be actually effective. If he tried to strafe you and he gave a good distance from where your fighter was, you're not going to be able to backstrafe him. You're not going to be able to backstrafe him. The best hope for you is you're going to have to lock him up, basically. That's the best hope for you. You would get first strike with your fighter by locking him up.
What do you think? Like, here's the thing. Whenever I run into a Taiho that's really competent, well, I haven't ran into any CVs except Ostia and my Vogue that were as competent or close to as competent as you.
Okay, what about that?
So, what I have a hard time with is deciding, like, what they'll do is they'll bundle up their two fighters to gang up on my one, right? And so, like, I'll try, like, I get one opportunity to strafe the hell out of them, and I'd say I have about a 55% success rate with strafing, then locking, and winning.
Here's the problem with doing something like that. You can't win air supremacy against a Taiho outright, especially if you're running strike. The reason why I say that is because how many fighter reserves do you have as a strike S6? I think it's something like, what, 14, 16?
You get 3 full squads.
So 21 in total.
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, then the thing is, since you only get 3 reloads on your fighter, what the issue is that you would have an extremely difficult time in maintaining healthy fighter reserves throughout the majority of the match, because he's going to, if he actually is attacking your fighters, and that probably means he's actually striking another target that he would rather use his fighters to actually sacrifice to actually get to that target for. The best Essex players I know, come to think of it, I really don't know any good Essex players right now, but
How about yourself?
I don't play the Essex. I haven't gotten the Essex yet. But what they would do, or at least the ones that have been good so far, what they would do is basically just station themselves around. They would basically tell their team, I am Strike, group up with your AA escorts, and I will protect the ones without AA escorts, is basically what they say during the beginning of the match, or at least that's what I would say in the Strike Essex. He would then position his fighter over something like a grouping of 2 battleships, and that's basically it for his defense. The other grouping will most likely have something like a Des Moines or a Minotaur or some other AA ship that he will rely on that AA ship to protect him for. So, to answer your question, how do you deal with the 2 fighters? You can't really deal with them. You have to.
Not that.
So,
how do I deal with CVs that play super defensively and basically base their fighters on their team and basically deny strikes?
You want to encourage their fighters to actually move against your own fighters. You want to encourage their fighters to move back from the front. Best ways to do that is by sometimes sending like 1 dive bomber around the edge of the map. Send it close to his carrier. Make sure he notices that there's a dive bomber approaching his carrier. He will usually send a fighter squadron back, and then that's your opportunity to actually strike the enemy carrier. What you can do with that dive bomber, if you choose for it to be empty, with an American dive bomber, I don't know why you would want an empty dive bomber. American dive bomber.
I might as well use it on him.
Yeah, you might as well use it on him. The thing is, some people actually might say that this applies to Japanese carriers, but Japanese carriers can outrun all of their contemporary carrier fighters with empty dive bombers. The Americans, when they're empty, are equal to the speed of the Japanese fighters. So in this situation, since the American fighters are faster than the Japanese fighters at this tier, at tiers 9 and 10.
I actually ran into a Taiho the other day that ran the fucking increases aircraft speed, and he ran me down like a bitch half the game.
Yeah, I mean, some Taiho players are interesting players. I don't know why they would go with that kind of composition when a Taiho specializes.
It worked well for him because I wasn't expecting it.
Well, yeah.
I was just like,
I get what you mean by that, but yeah, the best way to draw away a carrier that's playing defensively is by forcing him to defend himself. Because usually carriers are in the backfield. So best way to do it is by trying to encourage to defend himself or make himself paranoid about defending himself. So in that situation,
right.
you would
theoretically, I empty a dive bomber and just harass him the entire game.
Well, if you empty a dive bomber, if the carrier is actually smart enough and he notices that there's a dive bomber hanging near him but not striking him, then he'll think that could be an empty dive bomber or he's holding off for a bigger strike. In which case, the carrier has 2 choices: draw all of his fighters back to try to defend himself, or either ignore the dive bomber.
Or he'd just be spotting you for his battleships.
That is true, but the thing is, the carrier if I were a carrier being spotted by a dive bomber in the back, and the dive bomber wasn't actually trying to strike me, I would actually assume that it's an empty dive bomber just trying to spot me, in which case I wouldn't care. I would just move farther back from the front lines to ensure my safety.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you get a battleship with a spotter aircraft up, you do some damage to, especially if you get a lucky citadel.
Well, my point is, Revan, is that this tactic is meant to actually either make the enemy carrier sighted so that your team can shell it for you to distract him from defending his ally. That's the primary way you can do it. The alternate way you can do it is by trying to distract his fighters with your fighters. But that's a lot less reliable, and the thing is, if he's already playing defensively, he may not even try to attack your fighters. So yeah, that's my suggestion to you. Send a single dive bomber to the back, strike him, and if he does activate defensive fire, think of it this way. You have 2 minutes.
He just used his DF.
Yeah, he uses DF, and 2 minutes from now you can strike him, basically. So, if you do it that way, then I'm pretty sure that you'll be fine.
And like, even if you get super paranoid and hold spiders near him the entire game,
in which case you
like,
get to
then I get
strike
to
his
strike his
allies.
team.
Yeah, that's the point of doing something like that.
That's evil. I like that.
I've been playing carriers for a very long time, Dymags.
He is fully immersed into the cesspool.
That is
evil.
super evil. Like, ooh. What I did earlier, did you see the solo warrior game I posted?
Yeah, I saw it. I didn't see the video of it, but
there's no video. It honestly wasn't that impressive of a game. I was just able to finish off several ships that chased me. It gave us enough of a lead to win on the time.
I see.
But it was still like butt-clenching victory.
Well, my congratulations to you. Is that your first solo warrior?
It's my second.
Oh, it's your second.
First one for CV, though.
I see. Yeah. CVs apparently are the easiest class to get solo warriors, and then I think you can understand it.
I was
I saw the Moin get solo warrior recently.
Yeah.
I
died, leaving him the last ship alive, and we won on points. So
I was hunted by a Hobrosk, a Yugumo, and a Benson.
Those are the worst. Those are the worst kinds of destroyer players.
I shame them in chat every time I see it. I'm like, very shameful hunting a CV.
No, whenever I detect or suspect that there's a destroyer trying to find me or trying to hunt me, I say, you know, you're not going to get to me, right? In all chat, just make sure that. The thing is, if there was one time in My Hiryu when I was being hunted by 2 Akatsukis and 1 Hatsuharu, and it's technically my fault that I got into that position. But essentially what happened was that I was trying to cap B-cap. This was estuary. They had just finished capping our original spawn point, so I was down south. Basically, they moved all the way south. And I happened to kill all 3 of them, but my team was still incapable of actually getting the points in our favor, so we lost that match. It was... that was actually a completely separate situation. I didn't go in all chat saying, you know you're not going to find me, because they did find me.
Only when you're confident you will.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
confident you are.
The thing is, there was one time in my range a couple months ago when there was like an Ognivoy and a Kagero that went around the borders of the map, and I did not suspect that they actually went around the borders of the map, because this is neighbors, and I spawned northwest. They went all the way north from their southern spawn to the corner, and then all the way from the A10 corner, from the A10 corner to basically straight to my spawn point. And I was surprised that no one detected them on the way. So
I've never realized how hard DDs hunt CVs until I started. Like once I was at like the Ranger and Independence. I just like every day I was hunted by like 2 or 3 DDs. And like it happens to my Essex all the time. And this past week I would confidently say I've been hunted about 12 to 15 times.
It might be because I'm playing a Japanese character.
How many times did you kill the destroyers hunting you?
15 times at least.
Mm.
They always die.
It might be
let destroyers kill me.
It might be because you're an American carrier, and American carriers are notoriously bad at trying to kill destroyers because you don't have torpedo bombers to actually ensure.
Okay.
I don't notice at all times when people actually try to hunt me as a hero.
It's always Japanese DDs too.
Yeah, like you want a gunboat hunt. Like, I won't want to be in a gunboat DD hunting a carrier.
I had a Hobrosk, which I ran into. I knew he was there, I just didn't have the chance to turn around. He was coming to Cap A on
yeah, but like, the thing is, like,
I had no chance.
Like, when you try long range torp a CV, it doesn't work because he will see your torpedoes 100%.
And I will know, and I will know which direction to turn to avoid them completely.
Mm-hmm. I had a shimmy hunting me in that game where I made the shit post. You saw what happened to him. But, what was I going to say? No, that's not what I was going to say.
It's probably the best time for a DD to hunt a carrier is during a hurricane.
Cyclone.
Is it? I mean, if the carrier was never spotted in the first place and he actually plays smart, that is actually one of the worst times to do it.
Well, but the thing is, it's impossible for planes to spot anything
unless you're 5 kilometers away from it. So yeah, technically, I guess you can say that hurricanes are the best environment because the carrier would have no idea when
No warning.
Yeah, there would be no warning. The only warning would be when the destroyer is within 8 kilometers of you, and by that time, if it is a gunboat like the Kaparos, then it's going to be.
You melt.
Well, I mean, if you have like all 3 of your torpedo bombers online at this point, and all 3 of your dive bombers, he's not gonna live that long. He can't kill you
Well,
fast.
your Jimmies are still gonna get rustled. So.
Yes, that is true. That is most certainly
Essex,
true.
though.
But
it's like I hope.
And if he gets you on fire as well.
Yeah, if he gets you on fire, then you're kind of forced to decide whether you want to repair now or not. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting situation to be sure.